Hey guys, Joe here. Second video as promised that I said I was going to film, and this one is on a pistol. So it'll be a little more involved and there will be obviously talky and showy. This one is going to be on the FN FNS Longslide. Show you that it is empty, nothing in the chamber, nothing in the magwell, so we can go ahead and drop the slide on it and take a look at it. FN makes some pretty cool stuff. This is no exception. So let's go ahead and talk a little bit about it. FN obviously has been a maker of fine firearms for pretty much ever. In fact, they were one of the more well-known high power builders back in the day. In fact, after John Moses Browning died, an employee of FN finished his design because John Moses Browning died before the high power was actually finished. Well, obviously after that they've gone on to design many very nice pistols. I even had the FN 45, not the FNX, it was just the FN 45, but I had one of those for like 6 mags, and I did wind up getting rid of that because that was the point of buying that one. However, one came into the store through a distributor and I saw it and I'm like, that's really kind of cool, and that is this one, the FN FNS-L Longslide. It's chambered in 9x19, and they did make one that was chambered in 40 cal, but I prefer the 9mm. And originally I was going to make a statement like, oh, it's the poor man's Glock 17L or the poor man's Glock 34. However, it's not that long. It's long for an FN in that it's an inch longer than the standard. However, this is the same length as a 1911. It's just a 5-inch barrel. Clearly see from the end of the dust cover where the extra length has been added. However, it completely changes the balance. It makes it more of a competition-ready pistol, which I think was the original design idiom for it. The S lineup came about in 2011 when FN went from just having hammer-fired guns, FNX, FNHs, FNH, hammer, to the FNS, which became a striker-fired pistol. They did that because the market was moving away from hammer-fired polymer guns and into striker-fired polymer guns. One thing I've always liked about FN is the full ambidextrous nature of their pistols. As you can see on both sides you have a mag release, and it's not something you need to take out and reverse, it's just the same on both sides. You also have ambi slide releases. So, right, left. Some companies claim their guns are ambidextrous, but this is usually just a stamped piece of steel that you can't actually use. In the interest of full disclosure, this is not my pistol. This belongs to Liberty Arms and it will be going back, maybe. But what I figured what we could do is we could take a look at it together, take it apart real quick, show you the internals, how everything goes together, and then we'll take it out to the range and put a bunch of rounds through it. Before I turn you around, don't forget to go to libertyarms.us down in the description and on the bottom of the screen here and enter in discount code Jiminy at checkout for the online store. You'll get 5% off of your purchase, which is a pretty good savings. And again, that can help pay for shipping or pay for a box of ammo, or you know, the money you save you can apply towards things that actually matter. So let's go ahead, turn you around, and then I will start showing you the pistol in closer detail as well as do a field strip. As I said, this one came to us used, so it didn't have its original box. It only had 2 mags instead of the 3 that you normally would get, and you can still actually get an FNS in the Longslide today, but this one, again being used, has a few more limitations. Show you it is clear, empty, empty. There you go. Taking a look around it, it's actually a very simple design, but I like it. The only thing on the entire pistol that looks a little bit off is this one line. It's almost like, because the rest of the gun is so squared off, I wonder if they should have made that a straight line, but I know FN uses that as pretty much a design cue because of how curvy their logo is. It has a night sight setup on it, 3-dot. I don't really care for rear dots. I think it can get a little bit distracting when you're trying to get a good sight picture. However, since this is a 5-inch barrel, you have such a long sight picture that actually target acquisition is pretty easy. Even through the camera I can get a pretty decent sight picture there. Yeah, you can see that. We'll see how that does at the range. I assume it's going to help quite a bit. Normally it would come with interchangeable back straps. Again, being a used pistol, this one only has one back strap with it. However, for my hand, it feels very natural and very comfortable. I don't see any lettering saying whether this is the medium or not, and I'm not going to take it off just to find out, but it looks like it's the bigger of the two that it comes with. As you can see, no external safety on it. It does have a trigger safety, and it does have internal safeties as well, drop safety and firing pin safeties. But you don't have to worry about engaging or disengaging a safety when you go to use this pistol. Up front you do have an accessory rail, so you can mount the laser, a light, whatever you want to. It also has some grooves here in the front of the trigger guard. So if you are like me, when you go faster, you put you put your front finger up on here. That's what that's designed for. A lot of speed shooters do that. Jerry Michalik, when he goes fast on some guns, will actually do that himself. So on the grip panels, obviously it's a polymer gun without removable panels, but it does have a nice grip texturing. It's a square pyramid style thing on the front end, or excuse me, the sides and the back strap. The front of the front strap, that's kind of an oxymoron. The front strap does have just horizontal lines going across it, but they actually grip pretty darn nice. This one does have an external extractor, and it does actually stick out a little bit when you have a round in it. I will put a round in it just to show you how that works. It's just a ball round 9. As you can see, it's tactile. You can actually feel that it actually pushes out the extractor, and you can barely see it. There's just a little bit of red that's on the end of the extractor to show you there is a round in it. I'm going to clear it now. Show it clear again before we take it down. In order to disassemble this pistol, it's like a lot of polymer guns, like the 320 full-size polymer guns. Glocks use the double tab thing, but a lot of these full-size polymers use the flip-down release. First thing you want to do is lock it all the way in the rearward position. Take your finger and drop that down. It is captive, it doesn't need to come out. Next, you need to let the slide go home. So this next part is kind of interesting because unless you have a manual or you've done it a few times yourself, you'll notice that even though I've released it and the slide lock is in the down position, the gun doesn't come apart. There's a reason for that. You see how it's not flush back here? You need to actually bring it back so it's flush with the striker plate and the rear of the slide. Then you pull the trigger. Then you can take it apart. Set the frame down for a second. Looking at the slide, it doesn't look like the length of a 1911 barrel, but this is a 5-inch barrel. I think the rear package is a little bit longer because it's striker fired. It covers where the hammer would normally be on a 1911. Inside you have a full-length steel guide rod, and I'm going to pop that out. And in the best tradition, it is captive, so you don't have to worry about the spring going boink. But having an all-steel guide rod can help with longevity of the part and repeatability of functionality. The barrel is just your typical Browning style with a drop-in tilt, so you just pull it forward and then you lift it out the back. This is by far the most common version of this design where it's not linked. There's nothing for a cross pin to go through, and this is a very simple design. It's an elegant design, and dang it, it works. And just like a bunch of the pistols I've been showing lately, it locks in against the front of the chamber and the hood of the slide. Looking inside the slide, I can't really tell how many times it's been used because that wear at the top of the slide could happen after only a couple of hundred rounds. Same thing with wear on any of the interacting metal parts. The finish is nice, definitely tell you that. Finish on the front and the sides seems to be top notch. I'm not going to disassemble it any further, but there's your striker, there's your firing pin safety, as well as your firing pin is in there. So again, very typical for a striker fired pistol. Taking a look at the frame, you do have metal rails that it rides on. This piece is replaceable, so that's good. You just knock out that pin there and then you can replace this if you get some damage or wear of any kind, although those are pretty beefy blocks right there, so you should have a long life out of that. On the fire control group, there's also a set of rails. They're just blacked out. You do have your dual slide releases, and Again, they use a heavier gauge steel than some manufacturers, so it does work without them bending and bowing out. In the back here, you do have your fire control group. You do have your sear as well as your firing pin safety. So again, very, very nicely made and very well put together. Very little wear on these rails, again, leads me to think that the gun doesn't have a terrible amount of rounds through it, but even if it did, I've heard of these going 30,000-40,000 rounds without failure, so I'm not going to put that many through it, but it's nice to know you could. So, believe it or not, with those 4 parts you are field stripped, so you can go ahead and clean it, oil it, and reassemble it. Very easy for in the field maintenance because you're not going to have to worry about losing the cross pin, and with a captive guide rod spring, you're not going to have to worry about losing that either. Back to reassembly. Just take your barrel, just take your slide and your barrel, go ahead and drop that in. Super simple, and again, it's held in place by the slide interacting with the front of the chamber, so you don't have to worry about it coming out. Next thing you do is take your guide rod, insert it in there. Super simple, very easy, slots right in. It will stop exactly where it needs to go. Just make sure it's not sticking up. Take your frame and your reassembled slide. Go ahead and do that. Bring it all the way to the back. Lock it into the open position. Drop that back in place and you are good to go. The slide does have forward slide serrations, which make it pretty easy to manipulate. So if you are one of those guys that likes to grab from the front after you do a load, it's totally up to you. This is a single action only pistol. What that means is once you chamber around, the trigger will come to the forward position, enabling you to fire it. Once you pull the trigger, it will stay rearward until another round is chambered or you manually reset the slide. And now you're ready to go again. Trigger pull. It's in the 5-pound range, maybe 5.5, maybe a little bit lighter. As you can see, it just has some take up. Boom, stops at a wall, and then very short break. Reset. Short and tactile and audible. The 3 things I like. Boom, you can hear it, you can feel it, and as you can see, it's about halfway out. I've seen some single action triggers that you have to come a lot farther out. The Mossberg was one of them. The trigger feels nice and smooth. It comes right to the wall and then breaks. Reset it. Boom. So if you're one of those guys that rides your reset, you should be able to just go right there and then boom. Which should make for a highly accurate pistol, which is what this is designed for. You have the longer sight radius, you have the nice trigger in there. And the fact that it's single action and not double action, single action gives you a much better feeling trigger. I'm not downing on double action triggers. I'm not downing on polymer striker fired triggers, but striker fired guns don't always give you the best feeling trigger. The main reason why you may hear some people say they don't care for a striker fired trigger, and for some manufacturers, I'm one of those guys, is because when you rack the slide, okay, when you rack the slide and you put a round in the chamber, you are pre-cocking the striker back a certain amount. Then when you pull the trigger, you are making the sear go back and cock it the rest of the way. Then it releases. That's why you normally feel such an obvious break in the trigger pull. Having a single action trigger pull helps mitigate a lot of that grabbiness and the stickiness and just the nasty feeling that you get sometimes from these pistols. I mean, that's super crisp and super nice and no over travel, so I really do appreciate that. That was the FNS Longslide, chambered in 9x19 or 9 Parabellum. It's a very good looking pistol. We are taking it to the range today, so I will let you know at the range whether I think it's shooting as well as it looks. It's an FN, so TLDR, probably really nice, and I will let you know my opinions at the range as well. So Thank you so much for watching the video. If you're a subscriber, thank you. If you're not, please consider getting subscribed down there where the derpy face is, or on the red subscribe banner. Every time you watch a video, an angel gets his wings. Leave me a comment. Let me know what kind of gun you guys would like to see next. If they have it, I will do it. Otherwise, until next time, I'll talk to you later.